Discussing all tonight's topics with me are my brilliant panel. Joining me tonight are the polymath Andrew Eborn and the comedian Diane Spencer. There they are. Many of us have had the same thought. I'm not sure this guy, who's called Madapasa and refers to himself in the third person, is going to be a huge asset to the country. Let's take a look at him.
All people work here. He want to kill Madapasa because all people work here. He think Madapasa come here. He stand alive. He take a video. Now everybody talk about there's plates or there's a gun or there's people. So everybody want to kill Madapasa. Don't talk about Madapasa more. Don't talk.
I've got to be honest, I don't want that guy washing my car. He's seeking asylum in Britain because if he returns to his home country, he will be persecuted by bad tattoo artists. And yeah, that is a tattoo of an AK-47 on his face. And yes, he has a monobrow that Noel Gallagher would be proud of. We're told that asylum seekers are future doctors and engineers. I don't want this guy to be my doctor. On average, 135 asylum seekers have come across the channel in small boats each day since Keir Starmer took power. Now, I'm joined tonight by futurist, polymath, Renaissance man Andrew Eborn and the comedian Diane Spencer and fudge maker.
Thanks.
Diane Spencer. That's a serious thing, by the way. You're very serious about your fudge. I
am. I mean, I should have fudge tattooed on my face. Maybe.
I've got tattooed fudge somewhere. It's fantastic. It's a joy.
Now, this man with his tattoo on his face,
yes.
My question, I mean, it's a bit of a statement, the gun, and it's very front. How long does a tattoo of a gun like that take?
About 45 minutes,
I
actually.
thought you asked how long it lasts for. They're generally considered permanent.
No, I mean, because he had to sit there for a long time to have that
and
done.
It must be really painful. There are parts of yourself that you don't want tattooed, and that's one of them. Madapasa, don't mention Madapasa. The reality is this, is that and it wasn't just Patrick he had a pop at. He also had a pop at Nigel Farage. That's how it started. And if the guy doesn't want anybody to talk about, everybody knows the name Madapasa. Sorry, this is after you now. Don't keep mentioning it. But you've got to turn around on that sort of basis. And I think Patrick turned around and said, I will meet Madapasa. Yeah. Happy to have that conversation. Why do you want to come to Britain, Madapasa? Because tattoo artists are a bit better over here. Yeah. We could do that for a start.
I understand why he wants to come to Britain, but I don't understand why the government is letting him in. I understand we've got asylum systems for people who are fleeing persecution or war, but to be honest, this guy should be in a war. That's the best place. He's got an AK-47 on his face.
It does suggest he has a somewhat aggressive temperament. Dare I say, I think he might be a Capricorn. So, yeah, I understand. I mean, what's interesting is he clearly watches GB News. Isn't that nice?
I mean, this is not our usual viewer, we have to say. It's all very good. Jumping the gun a bit there, isn't it? It was working on that sort of basis. No, the reality is exactly that. How did he suddenly come on the radar of Nigel Farage? How did he suddenly spot him? And that's the interesting thing. And then all of a sudden he's getting all this media coverage. Don't talk about Madapasa. The guaranteed way of getting anybody to talk about you is to tell them not to talk about you.
Yeah, he's like the new Mizzy.
He is the new Mizzy.
We don't have enough Mizzies in this country.
But even Mizzy is not Mizzy. Mizzy gave up being Mizzy because he's all apologetic now. He's been on the road to Damascus. Right. He's sorry for everything he did. Mizzy was the guy who went around
on the road from Damascus.
Hey, he could be mad. Do
you think Labour, on a serious note, are letting this guy in because he's threatening people on the right? So he's like an attack dog. So he's got the tacit approval of the left.
Maybe. I mean, I would like to think that they look at more than just his sort of visage. I would like to think that the asylum process obviously takes into account, you know, where you come from, what you bring, what you are fleeing, what you want to contribute to.
Yes.
But I am a little worried that he keeps talking about himself in the third person. I thought only really supermodels did that.
Well, he is a supermodel. How dare you make assumptions about supermodels? I think Labour are being really clever because what they're trying to do, they're doing the Clinton approach to PR. Because you turn around and say, look at the wonderful asylum seekers we're letting in, and then you can let in all the other ones who don't have guns tattooed on them, and then people think about it. That was the Clinton approach,
they're
remember?
They're resetting the goalposts.
They are, because people suddenly turn around and say, well, we're not going to let Madapasa in, but we'll let all these others in.
But we're seeing other countries, European countries like Netherlands and Germany, tighten up their asylum rules. I think one country in Europe, I can't remember which one, has actually said they're going to
no tattoos.
They're going to have no asylum. They're going to suspend asylum applications for the near future. future.
Yes.
Apparently it's illegal under European law.
Yes.
But I think European countries have got ways around that we don't.
Well, you have to turn on, because it's a really serious issue. It was front and centre of the last election campaign. Everyone was sort of saying, look, how are we going to deal with it? As soon as you start highlighting this issue, this is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
We need to turn around. We need to look after this country. This needs to be the starting point. Because what's happening is resources are already depleted. It's going to get worse when we have the budget. All of a sudden, you're taking away heating allowances from pensioners and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You start giving them to other people, Madapasa included, you're going to have problems.
Well, he can chase the pensioners around their houses, and that'll keep them warm, I suppose. And it was Poland that suspended asylum applications, apparently, or is looking.
Where would you be without somebody in your ear?
Yeah.
Poland, I
remembered it. I remembered it in my brains. Anyway, moving on. A housewife, Lucy Connolly, was jailed this week for tweets she sent during the riots this summer, where she said she didn't care if people set fire to migrant hotels. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but she's been sentenced to 31 months in prison for a tweet. And there's some tragic context to this tweet. Her baby son, 19 months old, died due to NHS incompetence, and the last doctor to treat him was a foreign doctor, who she sees as effectively killing her child. A GMC investigation heard that the care was below the expected level of a competent GP. And while Lucy was jailed, people on the left who said dangerous inflammatory things are walking free. Labour politician Ricky Jones was filmed calling for fascists, which is a dog whistle for Tories or Reform supporters, to have their throats cut. He pleaded not guilty, but he wasn't held on remand, unlike the rioters, and will undoubtedly walk free. We'll find out in January when he goes to trial. And government advisor Nick Lowles from far-left activist group Hope Not Hate spread a malicious rumour that rioters were throwing acid at Muslim women. He hasn't even had his collar felt yet, and he left that tweet up. Now, should society have some compassion? I mean, she's lost a child. I don't think she's a significant danger to society.
Well, the problem is this, is the inconsistency. Firstly, what she said was abhorrent, and we absolutely totally recognise that. The difficulty is that the penalty imposed, the 31 months, was so out of kilter with the rest of the examples that you quoted, and I'm sure Andrew Doyle will probably pick it up on the story tomorrow as well. You work on that sort of basis. So what's going to happen? Justice has to be seen to be done as well as being done. The reality is this: when you're sentencing people, there are three things to take into consideration. One is the punishment for the crime, the second is a deterrent for other people, and the third is about rehabilitation. And when you're looking at it, this lady had lost a child and those circumstances. They should look at that sort of side. Also, the likelihood, did she really incite people to go burning down? I think that's the point. I don't think it was inciting at all.
I mean, she's a childminder, she's a housewife, she's not somebody who people look to for serious advice, unlike Nick Lowles from Hope Not Hate, a government advisor, or the Labour politician who's calling, who's calling for violence. So I mean, I don't think anybody went out and did anything as a result of a tweet that they might have, seen from a childminder. They might look to her for advice on nappy rash, but not this.
I think that what Andrew says is completely right. The inconsistency is deeply alarming, because she also said, I believe she said something like she didn't care. Now, again, I agree. What she said, awful, but it's not like she was. It's not like she was organising a group. And like you said, like how is the system so inconsistent and so unbalanced? Because you have people sort of, the best example I can think of is when they have I'm going to kill all TERFs and the rest of it. Like, that's literally an instruction and a broadcast to war, and yet, for some reason, this woman has been highlighted and penalised. It just seems deeply wrong.
Also, other territories have different, more strict rules about it. If you're inciting somebody, if, for example, you're a guru and you have all of your followers in front of you, and you turn around and they're all screaming your name, and you say, I hate that person, kill them, then that's clearly incitement and everything else. If somebody's tweeting at home, however abhorrent it is, the effect of it, and as far as I heard, there was no evidence that anybody listened. She took it down fairly quickly and so on and so forth. However abhorrent it is, all of those circumstances need to be taken into consideration. And they were turning around and saying that we want to make an example of her so that people don't turn around on that sort of basis.
Because that's the other thing. So Twitter is self-policing. Let's not forget that. Every time you put up a tweet, people can heckle you. They can write, I disagree with this. I think you're terrible, blah, 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 blah. We all know. But the point is that because Twitter is self-policing, that was enough. She took the tweet down, and perhaps it made her reflect on what she wrote. This 31 months for a woman who's already endured something quite deeply traumatic that nobody should have to endure.
And it's even not suspended. And you have other cases where people are involved in that sort of stuff and they turn on. Again, because it's very difficult with sentencing, they try to make it as clear as possible with the sentencing guideline, which is normally why they televise sentencing, because faith in the jury system and in the justice system is at an all-time low. Yeah. And I always say that trust comes in on foot but leaves on horseback. And the reality is that the reason... every single week I've got the T-shirt, buy it. What happens is exactly that. The reason they started televising the sentencing is so that people could understand that. Yeah. At the moment, there is no clear reason why this woman, based on the information that we have in the public, should have got such a harsh sentence.
Absolutely.
Doesn't make sense.
And Kearse says that there's no two-tier policing. I think we're being gaslit. Anyway, Elon Musk's SpaceX gave us some better news this week as it achieved another milestone. Let's take a look.
Wat zit er in jouw bonusbox? Laat je elke week verrassen door je persoonlijke voordeel. Kijk snel in de AH-app.
We can see those chopsticks now.
What you saw there looked like CGI, but it was the huge Starship rocket booster returning directly to its launch mount and being caught with the chopstick arms of the launch tower. I mean, this is a huge deal for space rocket technology. Having reusable sections brings down the cost of rocket launches. Today, launching a spacecraft or sending a satellite into orbit is 10 times cheaper than it was a decade ago, thanks to Elon Musk, who's leapfrogging ahead of NASA in space technology. Could it be because he actually focuses on the technology instead of virtue signalling to government funders? NASA have bragged about raising the intersex progress pride flag, but they haven't raised a 400-foot-tall, fully reusable Starship. Needless to say, the American government isn't happy that Musk has focused on technology instead of diversity and inclusion. The California Coastal Commission cited Elon Musk's political views as a reason to deny permission for SpaceX to launch more rockets. And SpaceX was sued by the American government for not hiring refugees and illegal immigrants. The lawsuit was unsuccessful because it was obviously insane. Yeah. Now, Elon is proving that meritocracy gets the job done. Do you think that's why the government is trying to stymie him, Diane?
Just a little bit. I was thinking maybe if Madapasa had a rocket on his face, then he would have got the job. This is such a wonderful moment in history. I feel like they're going to replay that in 100 years to come. Yes. And we're all the people who sort of got to experience it with all the first time. I don't know about you. I watched it like 3 or 4 times. Sorry, your question was about the government. I'm just blown away by
Make up a different answer. You should be like a politician. Whatever he asks, just make up whatever you want to say. I have to confess that I'm a musketeer. I'm very lucky. On the Andrew Eborn show, I have Elon's father every single day.
Amazing.
Elon Musk is brilliant. We talked about this, and we talked about a phenomenal success. They weren't expecting it necessarily to work the first time. They work on, carry on because you're one step closer to success. Yeah. It is a phenomenal achievement. And the reaction of the press was pretty bad. Yeah. A few days earlier, he had this wonderful We Robot event, which was basically he was showing about these robo-taxis and the robo-cab and also these
robots. Humanoid robot that can do your washing up for you, roll cigarettes for you.
Whatever you want, absolutely. We'll come on to that. But exactly that sort of stuff. But again, on that announcement, the shares went down 8%. Yeah. It's rubbish. We need to celebrate the success. It is phenomenal. I'm a musketeer. He's a brilliant guy. Watch my show every day.
And he's there to Mars with these rockets.
Yes.
No, wait. Now, I'm going to be the balance here because sometimes Elon Musk does go with things that don't necessarily come fruitful. The Hyperloop is one that I'm going to put a little pin in there.
Oh, you did? I like the way you did Hyperloop.
The Hyperloop there.
I think it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You cannot get that thing to sustain a vacuum for the amount of time. Plus, you can't dig up the English.
The Hyperloop is a big tunnel that goes under the ground.
It's a vacuum train.
Yes.
So there's no friction, so the trains can go really fast.
Yeah, it
sounds better than HS2.
I mean, to be fair, they made some progress. At least they did a test run of the Hyperloop once.
But Mars is going to work, though. And also, Trump has said, one of his things says, when he's elected, he guarantees that before the end of his presidential term, he will send some people to Mars.
Amazing.
Biden's going to be the first. but that's what he's going to do. So what I love about this, you need brilliant people.
Yeah.
Elon is the Edison of our time.
Yeah.
And he's the de facto US president.
He's amazing. Well, coming up, we will assess the week's winners and losers. This week, we've got Kamala Harris renaming Columbus Day, and a woman targets a Greek restaurant in a mistaken protest against Israel. See the video after the break. Welcome back. I'm Leo Kearse, and this is your Saturday Night Showdown. It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week.
Woo.
An anti-Israel activist in America got her flags mixed up and tore down the flags outside a Greek restaurant thinking they were Israeli flags. Take a look at this video.
To come back and put Free Palestine, too. The Free Palestine, bitch. Look, what you looking at? You know damn well there's a genocide. You know there's a genocide. Now stop it. Take this one down right here. What are they gonna do? They can't do nothing. I don't stand for it. I don't stand for it. Look. I don't stand for this. There's genocide.
Wow.
I initially thought that she was just furious about the Greek victory over the Persians at the Battle of Salamis in 480 BC, but our activists getting dumber, Diane. I've seen some dumb activists chucking paint on Van Gogh paintings, chucking soup on...
Yes, that was awful.
Yeah, I mean, like, that is really something quite special, what she did there, kind of a war on flatbread.
She lost her sense of hummus.
Hey!
Here all week.
It's just, what I love as well is that she decided to put this on TikTok.
Yes.
So, but which means she had a phone. Now, could she have used that phone to double check what the flag was?
But it's not the first time. They had, do you remember, there was a big thing when people were on a march for pro-Palestinians, and they actually all had the Italian flags. That video went everywhere. So people get very confused about their flags.
Well, flag shops must have suddenly run out of Palestinian
I think that's
flags.
what you do. You just
I can
say,
understand why people
change your label.
Just get one that looks similar.
Absolutely.
Like a little triangle on it. Or
so you can do it. They're all the same colours, isn't it? It's roughly the same sort of principle.
If I had known where, like, politics and social things were going, like, 10 years ago, I think I would have invested in a flag shop. Would you not? Like, that would have been amazing. Imagine how rich we'd all be if we had bought shares in flag companies.
Yeah. Well, I'm always suspicious of the protests. We're told they're grassroots organic protests.
Yes.
And then you see the placards all lined up, obviously prepared by some well-funded organisation.
No. If you go to any of these marches, they always have a little stand beforehand with everybody who's prepared these things.
Yeah.
And working out some
big money. There's big
Colonel
money
Tom
behind it.
Parker. You never thought I'd mention him. Colonel Tom Parker had the great idea, because what he did, Elvis, he would sell these I Love Elvis badges, but in the audience they would also have people saying, I hate Elvis. And what happened is Colonel Tom Parker said, I make money from both of those.
Right.
So I will sell the badges accordingly. It's the same with the placards, it's the same with the T-shirts, and the same with the flags.
And if you go to the GB News website, you can get your I hate Andrew Eborn badge. Moving on. An army veteran has been convicted for silently praying for his own dead son inside his head. Adam Smith Connor was standing quietly on a public green across the street from an abortion facility. Here's footage of the arrest.
So, again, I'm sorry for your loss, but ultimately you have to go along the guidelines of the public space protection order.
Right.
They say that we are in the belief, therefore, that you are in breach of the ruling that says about prayer.
Now, I understand that abortion clinics have to be protected from harassment, but he was apparently 50 to 75 metres away. He stood by a tree to be out of its line of sight and even had his back turned to the clinic to avoid any impression of approaching or engaging with women using the facility. When police questioned him, he explained that he was praying for his son, who is deceased. The police said, I'm sorry for your loss, but ultimately I have to go along with the guidelines of the Public Space Protection Order to say that we are in the belief that you're in breach of the Clause 4A, which says about prayer and also acts of disapproval around the activities of the clinic. Now, local authorities have spent over £90,000 of taxpayers' money prosecuting him. I mean, I'm concerned about thought crimes. I thought speech crime was bad enough, but now people are being arrested. This isn't the first case. People being arrested for silent prayer inside their own head. This is a worrying precedent.
It's immensely worrying, but because also I get brain freeze. Like, I'll just walk along the street and stop.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, oh no, I did forget to buy the eggs. Oh God. And I could be arrested for that. But Now, Andrew, you have a very particular view on this particular case.
I have a very particular view because Isabel Vaughan Spruce was the person who, in November 2022, she was also arrested. And what happens? The media put a bit of a spin on it because you're right. I think, therefore, I am arrested would be the current version. But it's not about that. It's about the distance between what people are allowed to do and the abortion clinic. So what it was seen, and so what the police get a bit confused about this, about how they're supposed to enforce it, because nobody was supposed to go within a certain area of that abortion clinic. So it raises two questions.
Are there signs?
Well, no, but this is what there would be a particular order. You have to ask, dig beneath the question everything. So the reason he was praying, absolutely, if you hear that, if that's the true story, and the only reason he's there, he's praying for his son, why was he there? The reason the police have been told is because certain harassment for women going in and so on and so forth. So there tends to be a history before this. What's interesting about the other case in November 2022, they dropped it after public pressure. So maybe after public pressure here, they will drop it as well.
My understanding is that he's actually been convicted, so it's too late for the... I mean, unless
they should look at it, but they need to clarify that. The problem, and to be fair to the police, I always like to play devil's advocate occasionally, they're being told you have to enforce this area to make it safe for people going in. And I also understand that the women going into these, they don't want to be harassed, and this is the reason that particular pattern was put round on that sort of basis. So it's trying to put a bit of that sort of stuff, but it's a very worrying trend.
Absolutely.
If you're worrying about people on thought and everything else, that's really, really dangerous, and we've got to call it out.
Harassment is one thing, you know, any sort of actual physical, real-world harassment, speech towards the women using the clinic, but, you know, just thinking in your head, and I understand the police are just following the rules, but they could just go and get a donut when this happens. Anyway, Columbus Day celebrates the day that Italian explorer, they love donuts, Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, or invented them, if you're me. You'd think someone running for president might celebrate the moment European civilization arrived on the continent, but Kamala Harris had some other words. Take a look at this.
There we go.
Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease. We must not shy away from this shameful past.
Oh, jeez, way to bum us out. She says that the land was stolen. It wasn't. It was conquered. There's a difference. She genuinely wants to rename Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day. I mean, how come Americans are still on stolen land 400 years later, but Axel Muganwa Rudakabana is apparently the most British person ever? I don't understand. I mean, do you think this is going to sit well with voters who might be sick of having this virtuous lecturing and being made to feel bad about themselves
with our usual word salads? Well, what I love is in 2016, Kamala, and that's how we pronounce her name, spent a fortune trying to get her name right, and nobody in the media gets it right. It's Kamala Harris. That's what it is. But the reality is exactly that. Why go back and look? History is ugly. If you turn around and say, well, you don't let these people in. If you go back, people are talking at the moment about reparation for the slave trade, which was abhorrent. But how far back do you go? Look at the Vikings. You look at I want to want money from Scandinavia for the Vikings. I want the Romans. Talk about they used to throw Christians.
Berbers.
They did. They used to throw Christians to the lions. Where do you stop? History is ugly. If you look at America, actually the people who are Native Americans, what happened to them? They were thrown off their land and so on and so forth. History is ugly. We need to look at that sort of side, but also to recognise it. Going the virtual signalling on the wrong sort of basis is not right for Kamala to do.
But also, like, you can have a bit of a glass half full. You don't have to go, like, all the way down into that negative vibe. Like you said, it was a real bummer. Like, she could have started off with something a bit more joyous, like, hey, wasn't it? Okay, so, yeah, history is full of bad things, but there's also good things, like because the Romans invaded us, we got baths and straight roads.
What did the Romans do for us? It's a Monty Python sketch.
America now has space rockets. Elon Musk's space rockets. Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, Latin plant names are racist, and Lara Croft from Tomb Raider has new breasts, which are woke. You won't want to miss them. See you in a minute. Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now, American Andrew Schulz is one of the biggest stars in comedy at the moment, but even he is not immune to cancel culture. He interviewed Donald Trump recently. The next week, his tour show in Brooklyn was cancelled. Take a look at this.
First off, I want to thank you for thinking of BAM for Andrew Schultz's upcoming comedy show. We are always excited when promoters consider our space for their events. After some internal discussions with leadership, it was decided that BAM is not the right fit for this show at this time. That said, we really do appreciate you reaching out. We'd love to work with you in the future and for future events that might be a better match for BAM.
That was Andrew reading out an email he got, or his promotion company got, from the theatre in Brooklyn, who sounded a bit trepidatious. I mean, they didn't want Live Nation to cancel other shows, because they're obviously making a lot of money from them. You think we need to sort of find a way of adding a cost to cancel culture?
Definitely, because I have a very big issue with this, because I'm fed up of watching really good comedians get cancelled because one person has written to the thing and said, I don't feel safe, then stay at home.
What voice did they use?
They go, I don't feel safe.
That's exactly what they do. They type up here.
Sorry, I don't feel safe.
No, you're absolutely right.
No, but I'm angry because...
You should be angry.
Let me finish this, because this is one thing I have a very strong view on. It is undemocratic, because there are a load of people. Let's say that he was going to play to 1,000 people. There's 1,000 people that now don't get to enjoy his show because one person somewhere has gone, I don't like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so undemocratic and so unfair.
We're seeing woke gatekeepers in venues, and a lot of it's local authorities. When Roy Chubby Brown gets cancelled from venues, the council-run venues, the council releases a statement saying, oh, Roy Chubby Brown doesn't reflect the values of whatever Northumberland Council. And it's like, he's not supposed to reflect your values. He's a comedian.
No, as George Carlin said, the secret of comedy is knowing where the line is and going beyond it. We have to have the right to offend people. We have to have the right to basically embrace all that sort of stuff. We mustn't lose our sense of humour, and that's the real trouble now. If you look back, some shows I get, you look at some of the shows from the 70s, like Mind Your Language, remember that? That was very racist and so on and so forth. But a lot of things being cancelled wrongly. So you have, I don't know, you John Cleese, for example.
You're
you get that
away
German
people's choice.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's what angers me. You're taking away people's choice. Do you know what? If that comedian's not funny, nobody will go to see him.
Yeah.
Because I
see lots of unfunny comedians.
What are you talking about? You don't have to buy a ticket for them. That's what people don't seem to understand anymore. Anyway, moving on. What's racist today? Today, Latin names for plants are racist, according to the University of Michigan, which has spent more than $250 million. That's $250 million on inclusivity.
You can't even say it.
I need a degree in it. Inclusivity initiatives since 2016. This money enabled them to discover that Latin plant names are deeply enmeshed within interlocking systems of domination and used linguistic and representational practices that are generally complicit in the continued erasure of non-dominant relationships to nature. Sounds like Kamala Harris. Money well spent. I mean, what do you make of this, Andrew?
Well, absurd. I studied Latin. As a lawyer, you have to look at Latin. It's the root of all language. Together with the Greek, get the flag right. You work on that sort of thing. It was. Exactly. So we need to look at that. It is absolute nonsense to say that you have to work on that sort of basis. So it's wrong. We should call it out and continue to do so.
Yeah, and $250 million they've wasted on this sort of nonsense, just going around trying to find things racist.
I just can't understand. What is that spent on, like Tipex, so they can just sit there Tipexing out all the Latin names and all the books? Like,
and it's interesting, Tipex from the Latin, absolutely, you work on that basis.
And Tipex is definitely racist because it's white, and it's white and it goes over black ink, so that is definitely erasure of
culture. No, I have to say you're absolutely right, Leo, as you always are. It is totally racist. That whitewashing, all this sort of stuff. Tipex, they could have picked any other colour, but they picked white. I think it's scandalous.
Yeah, I am always right.
Balance, he's not always right.
She's just saying that for Ofcom. Anyway, Tomb Raider, the video game that introduced the daredevil Lara Croft to the world, received criticism from feminists when it was released in the 90s because Lara's breasts were apparently unrealistically large. Due to the constraints of the original PlayStation's graphics, they were also unrealistically angular, with a serious risk of someone losing an eye if they were replicated in real life. Well, thanks to the diversity, equity and inclusion departments that now control all modern media, except for this show, Lara has been given a much smaller rack on a new animated Netflix series. Take a look. These are the breasts of the Netflix animated character on the left. And look, these are the breasts of the actual voice actress who provides the voice of Lara in the new show. It turns out that Lara's breasts weren't unrealistically large after all. They are now unrealistically small. I mean, do you think we've gone too far in erasing large bosoms from popular culture?
I'm not sure about erasing large bosoms in total, but I mean, looking at the beginning angular one, Madonna did it.
She did, with the little triangular things. Very good.
But, yeah, there is something, I mean, that's clearly the design of Lara Croft now. They always remodel these characters, you know, they'll sort of remodel, like Tarzan's gone through several...
breast implants.
But do they do this to male characters? I've never seen, you know, the way they've sort of, in all the computer games, they've made female characters either blokey or fat or whatever, like Concorde, the disastrous Sony flop that sold no copies. But you know, you don't see it with male characters.
Tarzan with a bigger pouch.
Yes, because they're always like the triangular shape,
like
aren't
He-Man.
they? They're always like Henry Cavill, like.
But Lara Croft, remember, Lara Croft was one of those IDOS. I worked with IDOS. I did some of the first Formula 1 games with them.
Amazing.
Thank you. They were basically, it was the first real feminine hero in computer games, and people celebrated that. It was about female emancipation. Females can be strong as well and appeal to that sort of stuff. That's what they wanted. She is exciting. But you're right about the Madonna thing. Those first characters and the computer graphics, they've now improved. What's wrong with that? People want that sort of stuff.
That's not an improvement.
They've improved from the triangle things.
Oh,
that's what I mean.
Things,
and if you looked at the movie, they did the movie of Lara Croft as well, with similar sort of things. Do you remember that one?
I want the triangles back. Anyway, and Jet Set Willie. Next on the Saturday Night Showdown, a man says conservatives are weird, but he's dressed in fetish gear while he says it. And a sex robot has a voice that sounds like it's from Dundee. Stay with us if you want to see that for some weird reason. Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now, left-wing people say that conservatives are weird, but do lefties need to look in the mirror? Have a look at this one.
Something weird about conservatives.
There is almost a cultish vibe, I feel. The way they operate within themselves, they refuse to listen to outside people, you know, they're refusing to learn, essentially. I think that is a large part of it.
That looked like a transgender gremlin. I mean, conservatives are weird. What's weird about low taxes and self-sufficiency?
It actually looked like the love child of Kermit and Kiss, didn't it? I think that was that sort of really weird thing.
If you want to show somebody who doesn't listen to other people, that is your exact example.
What was that?
Because exactly. So this person clearly, from the choices they've made from their makeup, do you listen to your parents? Because I doubt you do.
Yeah.
Like that person.
I don't think that person's got a good relationship with their father, to be honest.
Very narrow. They actually look, when I see somebody dressed like that now, I actually see somebody who I assume straight away, very narrow-minded, probably isn't going to listen to other opinions.
Isn't that interesting? Because, I've got the same thing. And back in the 90s, if you saw somebody with pink hair, you'd think they're fun. They're going to be punk rock, they're going to want to party, they're going to be great to hang out with. And now if you see someone with pink hair, you think you're going to get a lecture.
But it's also a uniform now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It used to be, what I used to love about punk and things like that is that it was about rebellion.
Yeah.
All that's happened now, it's become a uniform. And you turn around, yes, we're all different, really. You work on that basis. But the interviewer, obviously, when they're going on that sort of thing, they're clearly going for television yet again. Yeah. We're going to pick the most weirdest person we could possibly find and ask them a serious political question. And it's going to work on that sort of basis. But you're right, we should call it out.
Yeah, and for anybody looking for an early Christmas present, scientists have developed an incredibly lifelike sex robot. And for some reason, they've given it a Scottish accent. Check this out.
Through that system, you can connect the AI that you've created in the app to the robot and carry on the conversation with her that way. Once you've got that loaded and you hit chat, she just comes to life.
Good, you came back so fast, baby. I'm glad you came back that fast. Wow, baby, 10 minutes without you seems like an eternity.
You came back dead fast, baby.
Oh my God!
Why did they give it a Scottish accent?
It is weird.
Wait a minute, is it because it's like an American company and you know how sometimes they get confused between like Irish, Scottish and they don't get the accent right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not saying Scottish is not sexy, but I'm saying that is a very interesting choice. Like perhaps they've hired a voice actor and they've paid her off for her voice, and now they own her voice.
It's a massive multi-billion business about AI and robotics and companionship, and is it what's going to happen?
Companionship, you call it?
No, that's what it is. It's all a change about the hard drive and love bites and careful your 3-inch floppy disk. I mean, and you work on that basis with robotics and so on and so forth. That's what's going to happen. It's all about companionship. Yeah. The big event that we talked about with the robotics, and you saw that with Elon a few days ago. That's what's going to happen. They're going to do all these different jobs, and there's a place in Amsterdam apparently where there's like a sex robot brothel where you can work on that sort of basis.
Well, I won't ask how you know that. Now, I was going to say, do you think the human race could die out as a result of, we're developing these sex robots, they're becoming more realistic, they're probably nicer to be around.
AI, not artificial intelligence, but artificial insemination, because that's the only way the human race will work. No. You're right. People prefer, and it was interesting, there was a survey.
Like prize bullocks.
Thank you. There was a survey done where they asked teenagers in America how they like to communicate. The #1 choice was we prefer to text people than speak in real life. Because they cannot cope with seeing real people. So that's what happens.
For these robots.
They're perfect, absolutely.
Powered by AI.
Tom Hanks, when he was on that raft and he had a baseball with a hand on it. What's wrong with that? Wilson! What's wrong with Wilson?
You're right.
For a start, he's just a baseball. Anyway, Kamala's campaign was based around pointing at Trump and saying, he's creepy. But some of Kamala's fans are a bit creepy themselves. Here's one who says she's only eating dog food until Kamala is president. Have a look at this. I am definitely not letting her on the couch. Now, she says she's going to only eat dog food until Kamala's elected. What if Kamala's not elected?
She won't be elected ever. She's going to eat dog food forever. And what I love are those two collies either side getting really angry that she's eating their food. So that's the scene you haven't seen when they go after. She's never going to be elected.
She's going to get hit in the face. The dogs are going to get food aggressive.
They will. She's never going to be elected. They're all Trump supporters. It's got to be good.
It's lucky she didn't get XL bullies. I mean, do you think Kamala, when she was announced, it sort of stole some of Trump's thunder after the assassination attempt on him? And,
she did.
And she was storming ahead in the polls, but now Trump's
Trump's going to win. I predicted that before. He's going to win. I predicted that before. What happened, however, if Trump was kicking himself originally when he had that debate with Biden, because if he'd waited a little bit longer, Biden would have been there, he would have stormed ahead.
It would have been too late for Biden.
Kamala came in, worked on that sort of basis, and Kamala, and she worked on that sort of basis. And what's going to happen is, he's still going to win. The poll's now going through the roof again, and they're working on that basis. Elon, the old mate, he did his own survey, and basically, I think he got about 6 million people to respond. Wow. And they're about 78% said that for Trump.
Was that just on Twitter, though?
X. Marks the spot. Where you should vote. It's going to work on that sort of basis. It's going to be good.
I mean, I always worry about polling techniques, but I mean, I think a lot of people in America are afraid to admit they're going to support Trump because, you get shouted at, you get jeered. People keep it to themselves, and then, thankfully, in the privacy of the voting booth, nobody is judging you.
Eating dog food.
Yeah, but you could. Yeah, I was going to say you'll be able to smell if somebody's voting for Kamala. You'll be like, thank you. Take the thing. Like, I have to have a mint after a coffee. Imagine that woman. No.
Yeah, and think of her husband having to follow her around with a little bag, picking up. It's going to be grim.
It is going to be grim. I think you're absolutely right. But it is indicative of the Kamala Harris voters. So you work on that sort of basis. Yeah, I think the reality is it's not a good look. And you've got to ask yourself the question, who was the person filming it as well? Because that probably was her husband. It's rather like George Galloway. It will continue to haunt her when he was the cat. Do you remember he was the cat with Rula Lewinsky all those years ago? That's going to follow that woman around for the rest of her life.
I mean, do you think they're going to let Trump win? Because, I mean, obviously the Democrats, a lot of the public sector, a lot of the people who run the infrastructure of America are aligned with the Democrats. So, the Democrats have a lot of control over everything. And, you've already seen, I mean, how many...
Are you leaning towards the idea of vote fixing?
Well, I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying it's happened in other countries. They're trying to reduce things like, voter ID, and they're trying to remove, they have machine counting and stuff like that, probably done by that...
The hanging chads will be back.
She'll be walked to the station.
She will.
She's already cheated.
Sponsored by win a lot.
Yeah.
She can do that
Yeah,
for Kamala Harris, absolutely.
Dragged in with her little harness.
Hey.
Well, I've got to be honest, I think Trump is going to win a lot. So,
good thing we're not voting.
Because he said, he's not going to support Europe so much, although that could actually help Europe stand on its own 2 feet, and maybe, we could arm Ukraine instead of depending on America for all those.
He will negotiate peace much quicker than Kamala will.
Yeah, well, the negotiations will take about 10 seconds. He'll just storm in there.
He will.
Say, this is what's going to happen.
They are more scared of him. Leaders around the world are more scared of Trump than they are of Kamala, and that's the reality.
Yeah, that is
in terms of balance, she might win.
She won't. She'll win a lot. We want her sponsors.
That's Ofcom satisfied. Anyway, thanks to my brilliant panel tonight, Andrew and Diane, and see you again next week. And don't forget, Headliners is on as well tonight at 11 p.m. And I'm on again. See you then.